The moment Olivia shouted, "Look at me!" across the crowded wedding hall, every conversation seemed to stop. Heads turned. Music faded into the background, and standing near the entrance, frozen in place with his young daughter beside him, was Nathan Carter, a single father who had spent the last 4 years trying not to be seen. Before we continue, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected love. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the people who change our lives have been standing right beside us all along. Nathan never imagined that attending a wedding would become one of the most important days of his life. The wedding was being held in a beautiful countryside venue outside Nashville, Tennessee. White flowers lined the aisle, soft lights hung from oak trees, and laughter floated through the warm summer air. It should have been a joyful evening, but Nathan felt completely out of place. He wasn't there with a date. He wasn't there with a spouse. He was there with 8-year-old Grace, his daughter and the only person who had remained by his side through the darkest years of his life. 4 years earlier, Nathan's wife had passed away unexpectedly after a sudden illness. One ordinary morning had turned into a nightmare that never truly ended. Since then, every day had been a battle. He worked long hours as an electrician. He packed lunches, attended school meetings, helped with homework, and comforted Grace through countless nights when she cried herself to sleep missing her mother. Nathan rarely complained, but loneliness had become a permanent shadow following him everywhere. Over time, friends stopped inviting him out. Couples felt awkward around him. Even family members quietly assumed he would spend the rest of his life alone. Eventually, Nathan started believing it too. The only bright spot in his life was his next-door neighbor, Olivia Brooks. Olivia had moved into the small house beside his 2 years earlier. She was cheerful, kind, and somehow always knew when someone needed help. When Nathan worked late, she occasionally watched Grace. When winter storms hit, she shoveled his driveway before he woke up. When Grace had school performances, Olivia was often sitting in the audience, cheering louder than anyone else. Yet Nathan never thought much about it. He simply assumed she was being kind, nothing more. At least, that's what he told himself. The wedding invitation had originally included a +1. Nathan ignored that part. There was nobody to bring. So he arrived alone except for Grace. As the ceremony began, Nathan sat quietly watching the bride walk down the aisle. Something about the moment hurt, not because he wasn't happy for the couple, but because it reminded him of everything he had lost, the future he once imagined, the dreams that disappeared, the empty side of his bed every night. Grace noticed the sadness in his eyes and squeezed his hand. That simple gesture nearly broke him. After the ceremony, guests gathered inside the reception hall. Music played, people danced, families laughed together. Nathan stood near a wall, feeling invisible. Then, suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. "Look at me." The words echoed across the room. Everyone turned. Standing near the dance floor was Olivia. She was smiling, not a casual smile, not a friendly neighbor smile, something deeper, something that made Nathan's heart skip. The room fell strangely quiet. Olivia walked toward him. Every step seemed to take forever. Nathan felt dozens of eyes watching. His pulse raced. Grace looked up at him and grinned as if she already knew what was happening. And perhaps she did. When Olivia finally reached him, tears shimmered in her eyes. For 2 years she had watched him carry burdens that would have crushed most people. She had seen the exhaustion, the heartbreak, the loneliness. She had watched him sacrifice everything for his daughter, without asking anyone for help, and somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with him. Not despite his struggles. Because of them, because she saw the strength hidden beneath the pain. Because she saw the kindness he showed every day. Because she saw the father he had become. Nathan stood speechless. For years he had convinced himself that love belonged to his past. That chapter of his life was over. Yet standing before him was someone who saw value in him when he could no longer see it himself. Someone who had quietly been choosing him every day. Grace suddenly took Olivia's hand and placed it into Nathan's. The little girl smiled. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Nathan looked at the daughter he adored and the woman who had been standing beside them through every difficult season. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future instead of mourning the past. The reception erupted into applause. Guests, who had moments earlier been strangers now, wiped tears from their eyes. Even the bride and groom paused their celebration to watch the beautiful scene unfold. What happened next became the memory Nathan would cherish forever. He didn't see pity in anyone's eyes. He didn't see a broken widower. He didn't see a lonely father. He saw possibility, hope, a second chance. Months later, life wasn't magically perfect. There were still difficult days. There were still memories that hurt. But now those burdens were shared. Grace laughed more often. Nathan smiled more easily. And Olivia remained exactly what she had always been, someone who showed up when it mattered most. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with grand gestures. Sometimes they begin with years of quiet kindness, a helping hand, a caring heart, a neighbor who never stops believing in you. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request. Comment below with the words, "Second chances exist." If you believe life can surprise us with happiness when we least expect it. As Nathan learned that day, healing doesn't mean forgetting the people we've lost. It means finding the courage to keep living, keep loving, and keep believing that better days are still ahead. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support the channel and help more people discover stories that inspire hope, love, and faith.